watching the Mystical Green Beanie.
Hey, what's going on, dudes and dudettes? I am the Mystical Green Beanie, and welcome to my best of, worst of, spoiler-filled review for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, before I even get started, I want to clear the air real quick. I don't care for this version of the Guardians of the Galaxy. You know how people often say, that's not my Superman, or that's not my Spider-Man, that's not my Iron Man, that's not my Flash, that's not my Green Arrow? That's how I feel about this incarnation of the Guardians. And that's just a result of how I was introduced to the team. My exposure to them was through the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes animated series. Granted, they were only in one episode, but that episode left an impression on me, and got me to go back and read some of the old Abnett and Lanning run. Now, I haven't read all of it, but I've read enough to get a feel for these characters and know that that's the version of the team that I prefer. But with that said, I'm going to do my best to review this film based on its own merits with a team that's established in this continuity. So without further ado, let's get into my review. And as always, starting off with my positives, let's talk about the best of. And the first thing on this list is the villain. Ego the Living Planet is by far the greatest villain in the MCU. He's threatening, he has presence, he's really sinister, but best of all, he has an interesting motivation, and one that begs an interesting thematic question. And that actually brings me to my next point. The film itself explores the idea of how a mortal being views their purpose within the scope of their fleeting existence, and contrasts that of how an immortal being views their never-ending existence. And going further with that notion, I love how the film examines how a person who knows that they'll never die views the concept of interpersonal relationships versus a person who is very aware of their mortality, and how they view the relationships in their life and are concerned with the legacy that they leave behind. Another thing that I love about this movie, even though it's spoon-fed to the audience, is how it interprets the concept of fatherhood and differentiates what it means to be a father and what it means to be a parent. And how Ego, even though he's Peter's biological father, doesn't really care about him, or any of his children for that matter. Meanwhile, Yondu is willing to give his life for Peter because in his heart, Peter is and always will be his son. And speaking of which, the film addresses what it means to be a family, and how family isn't always born from blood. Sometimes those who are closest to you are the ones you meet at a party, or in your art class. Again, this is laid on thicker than marshmallow spread on extra fluffy pancakes, but I dug it. I also really like the special effects in this movie. Everything feels tangible and real. I actually felt like I was in a Jack Kirby-inspired world, and it was phenomenal. And finally, this movie has the best Stan Lee cameo, period. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. You're gonna know it when you see it, and it's gonna be awesome. But with my positives said, let's get into my negatives. Let's talk about the worst of. And starting this list off is that the first hour of this movie is kinda bad. And when I say bad, I don't mean unwatchable. I mean, it's bad in the sense that I feel like I'm watching a sequel that's coasting off the success of its previous installment. Also, the first half of this movie deals heavily with a group of beings known as the Sovereign Race, and their only purpose in this film is to set up Adam Warlock for one of the sequels, and their role in this film is very inconsequential in regards to this movie as a whole. I also feel like this movie goes a little crazy with the 80s music. I mean, some of it's cool, but a lot of it was distracting for me, whereas each track in the previous Guardians film served a thematic purpose. And finally, some of the humor in this movie is overdone, and some of the jokes get played out really fast. I'm specifically talking about Baby Groot and how dumb he is. It's funny the first 3 times he does something stupid, but after that, the joke wore really thin, and I became really annoyed with him. I also really resisted how Mantis was handled in this film, and as I said before, this ain't my Guardians of the Galaxy, but I found Mantis really annoying, and I didn't want to. Anyways guys, those are my biggest positives and negatives. Overall, I really liked the movie. I liked it a lot more than the last Guardians film, which isn't saying much since I didn't like the last Guardians of the Galaxy. But I do think it's a better movie. Maybe not in terms of structure because the first one was structurally more sound, but definitely in terms of intellectual maturity. This film blows the last Guardians of the Galaxy, as well as a few other Marvel films, out of the water in that regard. And even though this isn't how I see the Guardians of the Galaxy, and don't like it as an adaptation, I really enjoy this movie as a film. So, Yeah, what about you? What were your thoughts on this movie? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know down below in the comment section. Also, if you like this video, hit the like button, share, support the channel, and if you want to see more content like this, all you have to do is subscribe. I'm the Mystical Green Beanie. Thank you for watching, and as always, until next time, adios nachos, adios.